We are live. We are on air, YouTube. I have not forgotten about you. This is Amoni Isfael, Solonomics 101. Little update. I had this on the schedule, but then I had got caught up and taken away. Do not touch my hair. Don't touch my hair. Don't touch my hair. There was an article I actually saw last week where the wrestler was compelled, let's say the young you in a high school, he was compelled by the referee to either cut his locks on the spot as she manhandled his head and began to cut his locks or forfeit the match. And I had many thoughts on that, but I didn't proceed with the story until about 2 days ago. I saw a bit of a follow up that quick on the story. But before we do the follow up, for those who just joined us or who will join us, I like a little context of what's going on. Now, they'll be like, you always want everything slavery for you. I mean, but yes, there was a history. There is a history where your own body, your own personage is not yours. Your name is not yours. You don't have a right. You don't have a level of autonomy. Remember, eventually, when I collect all of the data, I'm going to put it for this thesis I have in my mind. But it reminded me, it triggered me instantly. And because I didn't want to necessarily jump to that, I just let it go and simmer for a bit. And of course, somebody picked it up. So I'm going to go over this article that predates this particular incident because it's not new. And then we're going to go forward to the actual incident. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. All right. And so here we are. I came across this article because I remember when it actually came out. Hold on for me 1 minute. Woo! All right. So this article, baby business. This article was from, when was this? I think it was last year. Yeah, no, 2 years ago. So September 21st, 2016. And this was an article where the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals recently ruled against a lawsuit filed by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission against Catastrophe Management Solutions, effectively ruling that refusing to hire someone because of Judge Locks is illegal. So somebody went for a job interview. They have this whole, how you're supposed to be groomed, this, that, and the third. And the thought process was that they ruled that telling someone their hairstyle, in this particular case, dreadlocks, is legal. They cannot hire you for having dreads, okay? And this article, I put the link in the box. So the article goes on to tell you the court case, who filed it, why they filed it, X, Y, and Z, okay? So that's a little bit of pretext or context to what has happened before in other spaces, particularly about dreads. And the issue is that it's profiling and discrimination because mostly melanated people are the ones who wear locks. And so therefore you're saying in order to work here, in order to make a living, you cannot be outside of our specifications. Okay. So that one is that one. And then in another space, again, this is something that's ongoing, this was New York Post back in 2016. Again, a lot of this was going on in 2016, and many other spaces where Louisville High School ban on natural hairstyles such as dreadlocks and cornrows condemn so-called Black culture. And so this is another article you can read at your discretion, where a number of high schools, you had young girls protesting about being able to wear their hair, a number of high schools saying that it's unkept, and you can't have an afro above so many inches, this, that, and the third. And what it's saying again is keeping the certain population within a limit so that they can't fully embrace who they are. Not if you're going to be assimilated within society, because it's not quote unquote decent. So take a look at that article. So the hair thing is pressing. Now, what's going on with the hair thing? So I finally come to this article that I want to share. Wrestler being forced to cut dreads was manifestation of decades of racial desensitization. Because if Ramona said it, it would be like, that's all you would say. So when I saw this headline, I was like, ooh, okay, now I want to talk about it. So the headline says, wrestler being forced to cut dreadlocks was manifestation of decades of racial desensitization. That was a long. So here's the young you, and just you have to watch the video. The video is online. You can tell that he felt violated. He was upset. He won the match, but he felt like he was robbed. And there's so much here that one would put one against the other and then forced in a situation to choose. I might have chosen something else, but we'll continue. On Wednesday, a little more than a week ago, after his new client, a 16-year-old New Jersey high school wrestler named Andrew Johnson, was ordered by a referee to cut his dreadlocks or forfeit his match. Dominic Spenzali, like so many of us who witnessed the incident on social media, seen 15 million times now, was still searching for a plausible explanation. Why this had happened is still not clear to me, Spenzali said. A lawyer hired by Johnson's family told an emergency meeting of the Bueno, New Jersey Regional School District why that had to happen in the manner to Andrew is not clear. Right? Could you have told him before? Is this the first time he was wrestling? Could you have pulled him to the side? Why did you, because that's humiliation. In antiquity, somebody holds you and shoring you like a sheep. That's subjugation. That's humiliation. Okay. Johnson, the Buena High School wrestler who suffered the shearing of his locks, see, it's humiliation, is quote unquote black. The referee who decreed the ultimatum, Alan Maloney, is white. Johnson's coaches, teammates, opponents, and fans who through impotence of protest are not the innocents they portrayed themselves, but static supporters of the referee's demand, are predominantly white, so so-called white. The Buena community and school district are predominantly so-called white as well. That is how what happened. It was the manifestation of decades of racial desensitization. It is a historical lack of respect for people of color, for whom hairstyle is particularly significant part of culture and history, and promotion of norms decided upon by a majority population. Because remember, you were told your hair was nappy, your hair was dirty, your hair was cut off, you were shaved, you were not allowed to groom yourself in a certain way. A few years ago, I did the slave hair chair report where a man in, I believe it was Georgia, was repostering a chair that somebody brought in, a family heirloom. And when he opened up the cushioning, that's on the channel, he found melanated hair stuffed in the cushion of the chair. And that is what they use for cushioning, essentially. And when he asked the people what you wanted to do with the hair, they wanted it back in the chair. And I mean, there was so much protest. I covered that. You can go ahead and check that out. Slave hair chair conversation. But anyway, I digress. And it is all propagated heavily through sports. What fell upon Johnson just before Christmas, we had some Christmas information about slavery as well, reminded of what was ordered of Native men at the start of the 20th century. In 1902, U.S. Commissioner of Indian Affairs William Atkin Jones sent a letter to the superintendents of the country's reservation that because known as the, quote, haircut order, end quote, he objected to Native men wearing their hair long and maintaining other expressions of their heritage as not, quote, kept with the advancement they are making in civilization, end quote. So they did it to the Native American Indians as well. Jones, like Maloney, proposed a punitive measure for those who refuse to imitate the culture that oppressed them without withhold rations. Well, you can't play in my reindeer games if you don't do what I say. Unlike what happened in New Jersey, however, level-headedness prevailed and haircut order was rejected. But the idea that respect from native customs were counterproductive and unnecessary lived on. As Harper's Weekly responded at the time, Native Americans should be taught to quote, adapt, I'm bugging out, yeah. Adapt to new conditions step by step, end quote. Alrighty then. Kevin Gover, director of Smithsonian Institution. Am I okay today? Institutions, National Museum of the American Indian, explained once to the USA Today how what happened over a century ago continues to infest society today. They were literally known as civilization regulations, he said, passed not by Congress, but created by bureaucrats and enforced aggressively and often arbitrarily by other bureaucrats. So this is not the first time. Let me see. Am I going to read the whole thing? I'm tripping over my words today, y'all. I'm going to leave the link in the box. I'm gonna read this little last part right here, and then I'm gonna leave it to you guys to let us know what you think about what happened, and chime in. All of this was taking place outside the view of the average American. At that time, someone living in Philadelphia, or more tellingly in Cleveland or Boston, might conclude there are no Indians anymore. They are gone. And in fact, that was the objective of federal policy. So there were a lot of very powerful forces at work to deny Native American people of agency over their own identities and their very lives. And that's when the mascots emerged. So you could continue to read on. Again, like the mascots that they're talking about is in the sports arena, where you have the Cleveland Indians, the Redskins, and all type of things like this. Again, this is a sports arena, so it's appropriate to revisit some spaces and where people's culture are being misappropriated in the space of sports. So continue to read. That's what I wanted to share. There's more that I can go into with the hair, the extremes that we go with our hair personally, and how much of our identity is connected to our hair. Hold on. A lot of our identity is connected to our hair for many, many reasons. I said, and a rebellion is through our hair. In the so-called in the Rasta community, rebellion is when you started to grow your locks. That's a rebellion against the system, right? When you start growing your locks back in the 60s and 70s, where it wasn't cool. Today, locks is, everybody has locks, even if you don't associate with the tenets of Rastafarianism. Before Rasta, they have a set of Indians in India, I forgot their name, so please excuse me, who also done, I'm just talking about one particular, so who also adorn their head with locks. But at that time, if you had locks in Jamaica and in the Caribbean or here, you know that is a representation of somebody who's saying they're against the established system. They're saying, I'm going back to my roots. Today is not necessarily so. Today is more of a fashion statement, right? So there's a lot of things that are connected with our hair, as well as spirituality is connected with our hair. We see in the story of Samson, the biblical story of Samson, there's a spirituality that's connected with your hair. There's strength that's connected with your hair. And when you watch the video of the wrestler, he goes on to beat, you know what I'm saying? The dude, like, he goes in, he's like, yo, so maybe, who knows? It can be a whole lot of things that's going on. I don't know his winning record. I don't know if they wanted to humiliate him. They say it's mostly a European space in which he lived. There could be many factors. I'm quite sure that if this is not the very first match of the school year, they were aware of his hair. So that's why I would want to know why or what happened. There was another story I think I covered some time ago about a young guy who they said couldn't attend his graduation if he didn't shave. And it was a melanated guy who couldn't attend his graduation if he didn't shave. He took his pictures, he did all of these things, and then at the end they told him, you can't walk if you don't shave. So it's kind of that power struggle. You're still under my roof. I can still, flex my muscles on you and get you to do what I want you to do. Again, all of this information that we're collecting is helping to look at how we view the fallout of slavery, right? And so if the thesis is, that's the thesis I'm presenting, and y'all are on my journey here while I'm collecting the thesis information. And if the thesis is, if you missed that video, go back and check it out. But if the thesis is that slavery was a textbook definition of domestic violence, and if we want to understand the effects and how to then heal, we must understand the magnitude of the trauma and in what areas we were traumatized. And so we went over that briefly. And we see that this is another trauma. This is why he goes off to go get the lawyer, because he feels violated emotionally. He is traumatized. His parents are traumatized. The 15 million people, then you're going to have a divide. You're going to have people who say, well, there are laws and regulations, and this is why he should have followed them. Those are the people who are in power. And then you're going to have the people who still on the other side saying, well, you don't have the right to violate me. You see what I'm saying? But you're still in that same power dynamic. It's my show, and I'm just letting you be here. And what for me this illustrates is that it's still here. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I'm not going to stay long today. I wanted to come back at another time and speak about another young woman, and all the news won't be bad. You know what I'm saying? But another young woman who most I forbid, she passed away in jail. I saw the article a few days ago. She passed away a few weeks pregnant. She was telling the jailers that she wasn't feeling well, and she wasn't attended to, and then the next thing you know, she passed away. These things are still happening. They're still going on. Some get more light than others. There's so much going on that, you know, what you could do is just really share the part that you can share. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This is Amuna Yisrael. Subscribe, share, like the content. Let me know if there's a discussion that you want me to go over to take a look at, and see if I can get a Solonomics view on the matter. All right. With that said, one. Oh, wait, one, I can't find my thingy here.